and welcome to The Big Picture. I'm Tracy Shilshi. Now, as the end of the year approaches, there's a sense of excitement, skepticism and also anticipation in the national capital, not for the New Year celebrations, but more for the odd-even formula for private vehicles. A lot has been said on the legal front as well, and today Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal formally unveiled the blueprint for the formula for vehicles that will ply in Delhi and those coming in from the National Capital Region from the 1st of January to the 15th of January of 2016. Now, looking into the details and debating on whether this is applicable, will this actually reduce those pollution levels? We have in studio, of course, Mr. Sudhir Krishna, who is a former Union Secretary of Urban Development. We also have Professor C.K. Varshney, of the former Dean of School of Environment Sciences at JNU, and we also have Chetan, Chauhan, Deputy Chief of Bureau at Hindustan Times. If I could start with you, sir. This odd-even formula, a lot have been said so far. Your first thoughts on whether you think it's actually a good idea or not.
I think you have rightly said that we have to really see in terms of whether it will reduce the pollution level to the acceptable level. And if so, then is this the measure which is enough? And in this regard, we must understand some statistics also. You see, those cars which are registered, they really make up the entire number of the four wheels in the country, in the city, out of which many vehicles do not really ply at all on the road. They remain on the parked. So I think the number of cars which are, and then there are large number of exceptions and concessions given. So the total number of cars which are going to be off the road because of the even and odd formula is going to be very, very small. And secondly, the cars are not the major polluters in that sense. The major polluters are the construction activity, and secondly and more importantly are the trucks and also the buses which run on diesel. And among them, the DTC buses also have a very fair share of contribution to the pollution. Their pollution levels are seldom checked, and the kind of maintenance that they have is also very visibly clear, because most of the time large number of buses you will find on the road as a breakdown either in this part of the city or the other part of the city. So I think these are some of the problems. Secondly, in order to really do this even and odd number cars restriction, we will find that a large number of buses are also going to be pressed into service.
Yes,
and moreover, the taxis number and their the number of trips that they are going to do will increase. So it is a question as to how much the car travels on a particular day or during this period, which is going to determine the pollution, not the exact number of the cars that we have. So I think coming to this, we find that it will make a difference, certainly, provided we have got enough implementation machinery and implementation will. But ultimate point is that will it really bring the pollution level to the desired level? Now that is something which we are not in a position to see, and it is only we will see as it rolls out that what it has done.
All right.
Because the major polluting sources are completely scot-free, but the cars do make certain amount of pollution, certainly, and this is relatively much smaller, out of which only 50%, out of which large number of concessions and freedom for people to drive, for example, ladies and for example.
They of course have been exempted from this.
Yeah, so large number of exemptions are there.
Yes.
So leaving a very small number of cars, which otherwise, to my mind, will certainly reduce to a certain extent, but will that be enough as compared to the kind of social and the kind of problems that is going to create?
But the small number of cars, sir, that you're saying is still a large number of cars, which is still 10 lakh cars, supposedly, that will stay off roads on any given day. We'll come to you guys as well, but first I would like to also introduce another guest of ours. We've got Jamal Ansari, former Director of School of Planning and Architecture, also joining us in studio this evening. Sir, thanks so much for joining us. But Chetan, if I could very quickly come to you, and like we were pointing out, 10 lakh cars off roads, supposedly to be off roads. Is that still, a good step forward?
No, I think if you see the entire pollution history of India, it started in 2000 when the CNG was introduced. For the first time, a step has been taken which imposes a huge restriction of people for use of cars. The impact on pollution may be limited, but it's a step forward. And I think that if you see in the first week of January, the schools are closed.
Yes.
Most of the school buses will not be running.
Yes.
Many people for
In
the
fact,
New
now
Year's will
it's
be
been
out of Delhi
officially
also.
closed till the 15th of
15th,
January.
yeah.
Yes.
So many of the people will be out of Delhi also.
Yeah.
So it will have an impact. But the real test is whether people who have their cars, who have to shun their cars, will move to public transport. Public transport, I don't mean taxis.
Yes.
Public transport is metro and buses.
Buses.
The Delhi government challenge is to provide reliable public transport during the period. I think it's a big challenge because DTC, I don't think can provide that sort of a affordable public transport.
Yeah.
They have the cluster buses. They will be pushing private buses into. So it will have an important role. But to check police pollution, I think a comprehensive policy in NCR region is required. Having a policy in Delhi alone will not work because if you see a large amount of Delhi pollution, the NCR towns like Ghaziabad, Noida, Faridabad, Gurgaon also contributes to Delhi's pollution.
That's
and
right.
pollution in these other areas are also very high. So the Delhi government with other state governments need to have a comprehensive policy. We should have a dust management plan also because without a dust management plan, having restrictions on vehicles only will not reduce PM pollution levels in city.
Yes.
It has not happened anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Even if you see cities like Paris or London, which had huge pollution in earlier first part of last century, it was the policy was to have some sort of restriction on vehicles, big ones on industries, and having a dust management plan.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for industries, a large number of illegal industries run in Delhi and NCR region. No government is willing to take any step to impose restrictions or to stop illegal running industries. Until that happens, it will be very difficult to control pollution. Second part is in the night. This odd even is from 8 till 8 in the
PM.
evening.
Yes.
The most large number of trucks come in the night.
Yeah.
And if you see the pollution monitoring in the last few years, in the night hours, certain days, the night pollution is higher than the day pollution. And the people who are living within 500 meters or 1 kilometer of the two ring roads in Delhi, they suffer a lot. Unless night pollution comes down, I think it will not have impact. So this should have been a universal thing throughout the day. But I think we should compliment Delhi government. They have taken an extremely bold step to start with. Because within the 15-20 years,
I don't think people have a problem with the steps that they are planning to take. It's about the implementation and, you know, the very fact that even now with the blueprint that has come out, Mr. Krishna, if you could even join in, you know, the plan that's come out today, the blueprint that's come out today, there are lots of vehicles that have been exempted. VIPs also for one, you've got women also, you've got emergency vehicles, of course, that you can understand. But, you know, there are lots of other vehicles that have been exempted as well. And of course, like it was being pointed out, just private vehicles. So, you know, and do the cops on the road, do the policemen, the traffic policemen, how can they monitor those each and every vehicle? That's also something that people are questioning.
I would think that for the sake of highlighting the issue of pollution, this measure is good. At least people have started talking about pollution more serious. To that extent is okay. But to make it a sustainable solution, many more things are required. And one has to sit back and do some scientific analysis of the problem of pollution. One is why it is occurring. Besides what Professor Varshney mentioned that construction sector is polluting, we also have solid waste and sewage waste management problem. You find piles of garbage here at locations and the breeze and the air carries it all over the city. I mean, that has nothing to do with the vehicular pollution.
That's right.
And that carries all kinds of germs. That is one. And the sewage not being treated well enough. All over the place, there's another river pollution and so on. And in addition to that, of course, there is an issue of DG sets because power supply is not assured. People are using the diesel generator sets, which is also polluting air. So the vehicular pollution is, of course, an issue which we must and we are doing okay, I mean, to that extent. But these are the analysis is of this part. The second part is we have to see the demand side of the pollution, vehicular issues, why people are requiring to drive their vehicle, why do they drive. In our country, very few people in the city drive vehicle for fun or pleasure. It is out of necessity they are driving and perhaps that is the best alternative for them. I mean, metro, if those who have travelled in the metro, I would think that I travel in the metro off and on. And it is primarily for youth who have got the physical capacity to bear getting pushed around here and there within the
And
metro.
the ones who can't afford,
yeah,
of
because
course,
the train is so much packed, no?
Yeah.
Buses are, of course, almost out of question because they are not near your house for most people. But if you are young, you know, say up to say 35, 40, 50 years, 40 years of age, you can get pushed around, you don't mind, then it's okay. I mean, even buses also. So we have to see that who are all using the vehicles and for what purpose. What is the alternative for them? So to say that you move on to public transport is easier said than done. And thirdly, I would say so the demand side management has to take care that whether we should reduce work from home, we can encourage people to do work from home. If it is not necessary to come to office, why don't you work from home to the extent possible? I will not say everybody, that is one part I will say. Then we can change the land use to mixed land use, encourage mixed land use. So you live somewhere and there is a possibility that you get a job nearby in the same area, you don't travel much. Okay, that is, and also shopping area nearby. You know, earlier we had this area for residential and commercial. They change the mixed land use also. Then transit oriented development is a concept where you allow high rises along the transit corridors, so people don't have to travel. You know, you live close to metro station and you go to the metro, and then that is another way. And then these are the ways you have to manage the demand side. And supply side is requiring, you know, good transportation system through BRTS. It is very unfortunate that Delhi had to abandon the BRT system. I would say very, very unfortunate. There was a problem with the BRT. There are no buses. You have seen, I have seen, many have seen. The corridor is there without buses. So naturally it created its own vacuum problem of vacuum. So BRTS, why not introduce tramways? Why not in tramways? The roads, it doesn't occupy road for all times. When tram is moving, you occupy the road, then allow people to move around. So tramway solution. And then, you know, good footpaths. It's difficult to walk. Whether ladies and old elderly people are comfortable physically and emotionally to walk on the roads, particularly at odd times. So all those things, if these are taken care, people will prefer to and put more metros, put more buses, BRT systems, good walkways, public bicycle. This package will resolve the supply side.
All right, some good points being made there. Mr. Ansari, are you hopeful that at least in the first 15 days of January, when this odd-even formula is implemented, you will see some positive changes really as far as pollution levels are concerned, or for that matter, even awareness among people? Or do you think people are going to find loopholes and anyway do what they feel like? Like we are seeing, of course, on the 22nd of every month, supposedly no vehicle day, no car day that we actually have at least the first till about noon time. But I don't see anybody implementing that.
Yeah, I think that idea is good. My only fear is that it does not prove to be another BRT. Like BRT idea was good, but implementation was very bad. So it had to be abandoned. That is one thing. The second thing, I was thinking that with so many exceptions, why exception is not being given to the senior citizen? I am a 75-year-old man. I am still professionally active, go out for work 6 days a week. How do I manage my things? Do I push me around into the crowded buses and fear loss of my life?
That was in fact one view also that was expressed because, you know, you are worried about women's safety, but the time ban that you're of course putting this ban on 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. it's comparatively still a secure time for safe time for women to go in and out. But for senior citizens, it's still, you know, at any time of the day, it's still difficult for them to move.
The second point which I would like to say is that if we want to really make it successful, we must enforce this only on arterial roads, because there are so many trips which are generated within the colonies, and for which, for example, for making a carpooling system. If people within a colony want to carpool, then they need to move around within the colony itself to pick each other up. You see, that is one. And the second thing, with no good last mile connectivity to metro systems, if I want to use my car to go to the nearest metro station through a colony road, why should I be prevented for doing so? So I think this will be an improvement if we try to enforce this only on arterial roads, not onto the colony roads. That is the second point which I want to make. The third point which I have is, I perfectly agree with the point which was made, that this estimate that half of the vehicle will not be on the road, odd and if principle, is a very simplistic assumption. Because as it has already been said, there are a lot of people who own more than one car, they don't travel simultaneously on the same two cars.
That's right.
So in any way, there are a large number of vehicles which remain parked on any particular day. So I think it will not be 50% reduction. If everything is successful, it may be about 30% reduction at the most.
All right, Professor Varshney, do you hope that, after the 15th of January, this is something that will continue, or do you think, the government will have to rethink its formula?
First of all, we must understand that a measure like this is only a temporary phenomena anywhere where it has been practiced. And even here, it is going to be a temporary phenomena. We have to look for lasting solutions, which really solve the problem from the basic point of view. For example, if you continue to have these pollution sources, then when it peaks and when it becomes really very dangerous, then you try to apply this as an emergency measure. Because in other parts of the world, wherever it has been used only as an emergency measure, which lasts for 3 days, 8 days, or during the period that they have games in China that they really use this. But it is not a permanent measure. But our problem is that consistently the pollution levels in Delhi and other small cities also is very high, and always it breaches the safety standards. So I think we have to take very fundamental measures by which the pollution levels are brought down. I give you 2 examples that is very important. First of all, that we have got this Aravalli range of mountains. Now, because of the mining and because of the illegal occupation of these areas and so on, the land developers and so on, that most of the vegetation has been completely lost. So, from the western Rajasthan, the wind-laden winds are coming and they are one of these sources. If we have the intact vegetation and a properly managed vegetation, then I think a reduction automatically will be done. Plus, it will help the water and many other benefits will accrue. But some of these things we have to do. Otherwise, we will continuously suffering from this pollution in spite of taking some measures like this, which will reduce a little bit, but not to the extent that we will feel satisfied. Moreover, we should also understand that January month is very important for the students, being from the academics, I will say, because in February, most of the practical exams and other things come. So I think from the student point of view, to really close these schools for that long, 15 days is too long a period. And therefore, it has going to have somewhat a dent on the preparation and on the confidence that the student will like to have when they are continuously going to the school during these months and prior to their exam more particularly. So I think these are the trade-offs, and if you see the trade-off and if you see the advantage that is going to accrue, we find that corresponding benefits are very limited, because it is not going to solve the pollution problem. Certainly anything that you do will reduce the pollution because everybody is contributing. But first of all, it says that whatever is contributing most. Chetan has mentioned about night pollution. I would like to extend little more on that. You see, because of the inversion that takes place during the winter period, whatever you produce or whatever you emit during the night hangs the whole night, which means the duration of the pollution remains very long time. And then the content becomes, because it doesn't diffuse, so it remains very high. And secondly, it is up to 11 and 12 the following day that when the inversion level weakens, then the dispersion takes place. So I think it is the night pollution which is really going and which is responsible for the morning blackout that we see, or the dark haze, or the high pollution level. So I think this is very important. Considering that, I again will emphasize the point that why the trucks have to really ply through Delhi who have nothing to do with Delhi and who are using Delhi only as a corridor. All these things require to be done and should be done at the earliest possible. I think some awakening is coming. For the last 10, 12, or I should say for 2 decades, people have been thinking about it, but I think they have not been able to implement. But I think now the situation has come that we have to really put almost, I should say, emergency measures to really complete these 2 corridors, western and eastern, so that the bypasses are ready and most of the truck is diverted. Secondly, that pollution is not a local problem, that within Delhi you are confined. You cannot really apportion the atmosphere of Delhi over Delhi.
That's
I think the neighboring
that
states,
was something that Chetan highlighted
So I think,
as well.
I think these kinds of discussion must come so that everybody has a uniform way of handling it, and therefore we can attack this problem on a regional basis. Unless
not
we
to
do
defend
that,
the Chief Minister, but he has of course said that, this is just one step. We are taking gradual steps, and this is perhaps one of the easier ones that we can implement because of the fact that Private vehicles are owned by educated people, perhaps more concerned citizens. It's easier for them to...
If you ask me,
yes.
if the Delhi government would have had a proper dust management plan, there's so much construction by Public Works Department,
yes,
Delhi Metro, different government agencies. If they would have implemented a dust management plan, of which they have been speaking for the last 8-9 months, they had a meeting with the Environment Minister also, but if they would have put in place a dust management plan for the city and imposed restrictions or penalties on companies which are not adhering to the plan or the guidelines, then the pollution problem could have been managed to a large extent.
Yeah.
But this has not happened. They have opted for a measure which is easier. And you should not forget about the politics, because even an odd number, the traffic police will have to implement it.
Yes.
And if you go what is happening with the Delhi government and the central government in the last few months, the blame game will happen.
That's right. Already we've got Kejriwal saying that, the centre has to make sure this plan does work.
He has written a letter to Prime Minister also on this.
Yes.
So it is not about implementation. I'm definitely sure that it will be difficult to implement.
Yes.
And when the Delhi government fails to implement it, they will blame the traffic police for it. And the traffic police will say that the Delhi government didn't consult us before making this announcement. So it is part of the bigger political game also.
Yes.
But it's a good step nevertheless. But I don't think that these sort of steps, as Dr. Varshney said, will help in combating Delhi's air pollution. I think a proper management plan for the entire NCR has to be prepared and implemented.
All right.
Supreme Court is working on it.
Yeah.
And I am sure that in the coming months, Supreme Court will ensure much more stricter guidelines.
Looking forward to that, yes.
If you see the CNG, Delhi government claimed the credit. It was Supreme Court which would all the direction.
That's right.
And only when the contempt notice was issued, Delhi government, it was implemented.
All right. Very quickly, last word from you, sir. Post 15th of January, do you see this formula being implemented continuing?
I think it will be difficult to continue with this,
right,
because closing schools cannot be continued for long.
That's true.
15th is up already; it is stretching too much.
Yes,
I think that one has to go into the what is sustainable solution rather than going in for. Of course, as I said earlier, that to highlight the issue, it's very important.
Good enough. Yes,
that has been done, but much more has to be done. For example, we had proposed regional rapid transit system, that from as far as Rewari and even beyond Meerut to Delhi in 45 minutes. So people will not be using the car. I mean, you give, but there is no such system. So people are actually traveling from Meerut, Delhi and returning in the evening. They are actually doing that because there is no option for many of them. So it is possible. The solutions are with us. And the truck terminals outside Delhi coupled with the eastern and western peripheral roads.
All right.
So the trucks will relax there for the night or whatever time, and then they do not come to Delhi and comfortably bypass Delhi and go. These are possible solutions are with us.
Okay.
Yes, I think,
all right. Mr. Ansari, giving you the last word here. The government, of course, like Chetan is pointing out, there is, of course, a political angle to this as well. But, as aware citizens, something that we on our own perhaps should be trying to implement as well.
Yeah, I think we should try to help as much as possible. But then ultimately the people inconveniences should not increase so much that they just get fed up.
Yeah.
You see, the point is that if we don't have a proper public transportation system, to expect that people will just leave the car and move into public transportation system is expecting a bit too much from them.
Yes.
You see, there are long-term solutions which are within the realms of possibility which we don't take care, like as has been mentioned, Eastern and Peripheral Expressway, so important. But it has been hanging on for the last 10 years. What is preventing us from going ahead with speed and complete these two projects quickly? You see? So there are so many other projects like that which, if implemented properly, they will be more practical and they will have a lasting solution possible for us in future.
All right.
Not now.
All right. So everyone, all of us, of course, agree that this is, of course, a good step forward. But this is just a temporary measure, and we wonder, of course, on whether it can be actually applicable in future as well. Already, I do know of people selling stickers, with odd even numbers. So, talk about loopholes, and we have that as well. Thanks so much, gentlemen, for all of you joining me here on The Big Picture on this topic. Of course, we'll wait and see on the 1st of January what eventually happens. But thanks so much for joining us for the moment. Keep watching Rajya Sabha TV.